Barry Svrluga. What's up, Barry? How you doing, brother?
Great,
What's up,
boys.
Barry?
Hope you're doing well.
We are good, man. We are good. We talk to you all the time, just in the press room and hanging out and whatever. But I wanted to make sure we made time to talk about a column you wrote. Maybe it was late last week. Just about how the Commanders, the Burgundy and Gold, the Washington organization, has done a complete 180 in the eyes of the league. Not just with fans, but how different the league views this organization. And I know you asked a bunch of people about it and wrote about it. And I thought that is a really interesting, kind of part to all of this.
Well, I think it continues a theme from last year, right? Where it starts that Josh Harris is not Dan Snyder and Adam Peters is not Vinny Serrato or Bruce Allen, and Dan Quinn isn't Jim Zorn, right? And Jaden Daniels isn't Case Keenum or Ryan
Whoever.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Fill in the blank.
Right.
Taylor Heineke. So, that's not new news that at the most
Determined rapid organizational change. And then this offseason, you mentioned Kinlaw, Von Miller wants to be here. Of the new guys, we did this thing where we ranked, of the new guys who perform best. And I think just because of the nature of offensive line play, I do think the best new guy on Sunday was Laramie Tunsil. But, it's just hard to quantify that. And then when you see what Kinlaw does, when you see, especially offensively, what Debo and Bill do, you're like, wow, all these chess pieces have just taken this team up a notch. I know Debo stood out to you particularly, and his relationship with Kingsbury and what that allows Kingsbury to do.
Yeah, for sure. But I'll tell you, I was sitting there in the press box going, okay, am I going to write about the defense? Because the defense really looked better and nobody allowed fewer points in week one. Once Debo scores, and you kind of think, let's pause on the defense because there's a chance Russ is cooked and that offense doesn't have any weapons beyond Neighbors. So we'll see how that plays out. I think Thursday night will be a big test. I will say, it became an easy choice to write about Debo off the game, but I'm just fascinated to watch Kinlaw the rest of the way. I mean, you guys had Adam Kilgore, my colleague, on earlier in camp because he wrote a pretty in-depth story about him, and he was right in saying he probably wasn't the first writer to look at Javon Kinlaw and be like, holy cow, this guy is massive. He's just going to be a total game wrecker, and that hasn't played out. But it just, like I said, from that first snap, he made an impact, and it seems like the pieces on that defensive line fit together perfectly. And if you look at, a guy who's part of the furniture around here in Deron Payne, you can't tell me that his big game on Sunday wasn't related to the fact that Dietrich Wise was balling out and Javon Kinlaw was taking up space and men. It seems like, pass rush is among the biggest questions for this team all camp, and I think it still remains one of the biggest concerns. But I'm pretty fascinated to see how the new guys, new big bodies on that line work together, and maybe they don't have, even with Miller here, a 12-sack guy, but they put pressure on the quarterback and they have a bunch of guys who have 5 sacks or something like that.
Oh, they believe me, when guys see other guys balling, if you got game, you better lift it.
Yeah. It's such a team. Yeah, go ahead, JP.
No, I just wanted to ask you. So I've been up here interacting with some. Everybody's very, very nice, these Wisconsin folks, but none of them think Washington has a shot in this game. I very much think the opposite. I'm curious about you.
Well, so I thought one of the most fascinating things Dan Quinn said yesterday. He's getting asked questions about the Packers and how dangerous they are, and Micah Parsons is there, and he knows Parsons as well as anybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all legit. And he just kind of quietly slipped in they got to deal with us too. And that wasn't his thumping his chest, but that's real. And that is baked in. And yes, Green Bay is very good. They're at home, and they don't have to they went from home to home in a short week with no flights. Commanders will fly after practice and deal with the travel. So there's an advantage to the Packers, and the Packers are good enough that they should be favored. But I just think that this group has shown that they have to be dealt with too, and that is every week and every quarter and every snap. You got to figure they're going to be a little bit cleaned up with the penalties from last week. So I think there's a way for the Commanders to come out of this with a loss, but still make a statement. And that's not even saying I expect them to lose, because, they went into Detroit last year and blew the doors off. I know the Eagles game in the fourth quarter was ugly, but go back and watch that. It wasn't as ugly for the first three. Like they were in it. There's not a team that this team can't play with, and that's not declaring them a Super Bowl favorite or favorite in the NFC East over the Eagles or anything like that. The attitude is what Quinn said yesterday. They got to play us too.
Yeah, man. It's my favorite line from last season was in the locker room leading up to the Lions divisional round. And Quan Martin's like, yeah, man, they're good, but we're good too. And I love that attitude. I think it's I think it's a really healthy space to be in. Barry, safe travels out here. We'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
Barry.
Thanks, boys. See you out there.
Hi, brother.